Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to my series of 100 first videos. Again, just to kind of reiterate what I said in my last one, I've set a goal for myself to record 100 videos. I haven't set an end date or anything like that. I'm just going to be able, or I'm just going to record them whenever I can and see what comes out. And I might not post all of them. I don't know yet. I'm just going to take it as I go. And because, as I mentioned in my last video, one of my big goals right now is that I want to become self employed. And at the moment, the stuff that I'm doing is more sort of traditional starting my business stuff, such as creating graphics, creating courses, stuff like that I've done as an employee in my life. But what I actually want to do is help people and help myself through it as well, because what I think is the most important thing that we can do in our lifetime is get to know ourselves, because it unlocks so many doors and we don't even see that, I think, until we start really diving into it. And I'm now at least 10 years into this process. And as I mentioned yesterday, yeah, it was a slow start. It wasn't full speed ahead right away. And it never really is that way unless I get a big long break or something like that. This year has been uh, an example of one of those long breaks because, and I say this year, I mean 2025, obviously, since 2026 is just starting, but I actually was let go from, or laid off, I should say, from my job at the end of 2024, just because the company was shutting down. And yeah, I had a whole year to myself, which, as some of you or many of you will as many of you will know, is not something that happens very much as an adult unless you're lucky or you have a different lifestyle. But I think for most of us, it's quite rare to get that amount of time. So there was a lot of progress done for me over this year. And a lot of it actually was just kind of integrating a lot of what I feel like I've been learning over the past 10 years or so. And yeah, it's kind of like I feel much more comfortable in my own skin now, despite, not being 100% happy, of course, with everything. That's not what I'm saying at all. I don't think that's the goal either. I love this by author James Hollis. He talks about how the journey is our home. So essentially, learning to make peace with that, learning to kind of be like, there is no destination, right? Other than, I guess, death. Like, that's the final destination. But that's not really like something to aspire to. It's just something that happens. Whereas the journey is something you do have more sort of control over. You can make decisions that will heavily influence your life. And most importantly, I think, is what's going on within. So, what's going on inside of you. So I know that society kind of teaches us very early on to look for validation and such outside of ourselves. So, get good grades, get a good job, marry well, have kids, blah, 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 blah. But, I think that many people um, do all of that. They follow the script, they follow the guidance of their culture and their society and their parents, teachers, and they end up in places where they just feel very lost. And we hear about things like the midlife crisis and things like that, where people will reach midlife and they kind of freak out, like, and they might not know why that's happening. But I think it's because they reach this point where they are kind of like, I did all the things. I did all the things that I was supposed to do. I got married, I got kids, I've got a good job, whatever. Or anyway, that's the way it used to be. Things are a little weirder now, but yeah. And then it's like, I did all the things that I was supposed to do, but I'm still not happy. And that's a pretty sucky feeling. Like, that's not a good feeling, I think. And not that I think that the point of life necessarily is happiness, but it's nice to have, especially if potentially took on all of that with the hopes that that would be like, that's the carrot on the stick that you've been chasing for the majority of your adult life, and you reach this age where you're like, I'm not happy. Like maybe like you can blame your spouse, you can blame your job, you can blame a bunch of stuff, but I think it goes deeper than that. I think there is sort of like this part of us that really wants to know us on a deeper level, like ourselves on a deeper level. And yeah, for me, I reached that point much earlier on in my life. And I remember this song that I really liked when I was a kid by John Mayer, where he was talking about a quarter life crisis. And in a sense, like I feel like that's when that stuff started happening to me, that I was realizing that I was feeling very lost and I didn't know who I was and I didn't know what I wanted. And that was the scariest part. And there's a lot of things about me in particular that sort of led to that, I think. So, first of all, I knew very young that I did not want kids. Like, I did not, that was not sort of on the path for me. And many years later, in my later adulthood, I'm still very like, no, it's just not right for me in this lifetime. And if you do believe in reincarnation and sort of multiple lives, then I think you can see how, there's just certain experiences that you're meant to have in some lifetimes, and other experiences that you're like, no, that was another lifetime, or like that's a future lifetime. You can't experience everything in one, right? So, anyway, so that was one of the big things that I think helped me sort of have this epiphany younger, because I wasn't seeking a life partner. I wasn't seeking to start a family, all of that. It was just me, and yeah. And then when it comes to romance and relationships, it's also not been a main focus of mine. I don't know why. I mean, there's reasons that I can guess at, but it's just I've always kind of been one of those people that is very comfortable with herself, by herself. And although in during specific times of my life, I have wished like, oh, I wish I had more support. I wish I had somebody to rely on. I think that being perpetually single and on my own has being perpetually single and being by myself has led to some um, sort of realizations that I may not have had otherwise, because those are all sort of like tasks that take up a lot of energy, dating, from what I hear. Not that like, again, I'm not very invested in that whole world, but it's a lot of work, right? You have to go on multiple dates and meet different people, and you have to figure out what you want, and what you don't want. And I think that comes largely through trial and error. And there's a piece of like, there's chemistry anyway. So it's a big task to take on. Same with career, same with starting a family. There are a lot of big tasks, and I feel like not having all of those tasks, in a sense, on my docket allowed me to focus on different things. And one of the big ones, like I said, was getting to know myself, figuring out who I am. And it's been a very interesting journey, let me tell you, because very early on, so the very first book that I picked up when I started was You Are the Placebo by Joe Dispenza. And this is not a book that I necessarily still to this day relate to, or like I haven't gone back to it in years, but it did get me started on this idea that we don't have access to our subconscious. There is like our conscious mind that is there, and we think it's in control. We think it's making all of our decisions for us. We think that that is all there is, possibly, right? I don't know if that's like our ego or whatever that is telling us of that, all of that. I'm not really good with that kind of lingo, I have to admit right away, but I am good with concepts and like tying things together. So to me, right away, I was like, oh, the unconscious, how interesting, right? And shortly after that, actually, I started having dreams, and my dream life became more and more active as I got more involved with it. And it's been years now. I've been tracking my dreams since 2018. And, at first I was tracking a handful of dreams per year, maybe. I'd have to check, but yeah, like it was not a great amount of dreams, but it was still very interesting to see the themes that kept coming back up and the people that would show up in my dreams and their roles too. And I have to admit that back then I just kind of took everything literally when it came to my dreams. But it's been years now, and I even tried to start a podcast at some point about my dreams because I've gotten to this point now where my dreams are so vivid, to the point where it's almost frustrating sometimes when I try to record them because there's so much detail, there's so much conversation, there are so many different people, there's so much happening that I can't recall it all in the morning. I just can't. Like, it's just, for anyone who's tried to record their dreams and stuff, you know how hard it is. Like, you know that the first thing you need to do in the morning when you wake up is just like stop, like consciously be like, oh, wait, I had a dream. And then go back and try to remember as much of it as you can. And that's not an easy task. Like trying to remember conversations, it's like if you're watching a TV show and then you stop watching the TV show and you try to remember like things that people said in the like it's going to be really hard. You're not going to be able to say it word for word. And in a TV show there's like a story, there's like some kind of continuity, there's reoccurring characters that whereas in dreams it's always random. It's like, well, what are we going to talk about next? Anyway, but nevertheless, as frustrating as that can be in a sense, because I feel like I'm missing so much when I write down my dreams, I still have found that this is sort of like the backdoor access to your subconscious. And yeah, I just kind of felt like I didn't have access to that for a really long time. And like I said, when I started reading about it, sort of like, yeah, I vaguely remember the book, but it was kind of like, through meditation and yada, 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 and changing your beliefs and all of that, which is great, right? Like reprogramming yourself is definitely something that, and you can call it whatever you want, right? Changing your beliefs, etc. Like there's so many different approaches to this, and I do believe it is possible, right? Like I think last I checked, I think science has proven it too, right? Like neuroplasticity and all that stuff. I don't ask me about that. Like I'm not a very scientific person, although I enjoy reading about it. I just like instantly forget after I'm, I'm done. My brain just doesn't remember like specifics. It just remembers concepts as I mentioned. So yeah, I just kind of started feeling or seeing that really my dreams oftentimes talk about things that are either happening in my life or just kind of goes back and dredges up old trauma and old stories and old beliefs and frames them in very interesting ways. And yeah, I've just absolutely like I've just fallen in love with dream work and all that stuff. And honestly, I still feel like I don't do enough despite, writing them down, trying to analyze them, everything. Like I still feel like there is so much that I'm leaving on the table when it comes to dreams. So if you're watching this and you haven't started exploring your dreams, I would highly recommend it. And oftentimes when I talk about this with people and I actually bring up some of my dreams and tell people about them, they start dreaming as well, just like because I really think that there is a voluntary sort of piece to all of this. Like, I think if you tell sort of like your subconscious or your dreams or whatever, I want to remember my dreams or I want to have dreams, they will listen, right? And you have to do your part too because I think that like the thing that brings them to consciousness is your awareness of them and just noticing when you're having a dream, right? That sounds really silly and I don't know how long it took me really to be able to do that pretty regularly, like pretty easily. But it does start with just that intention and then also starting to write them down. So, like I said, one of my rituals in the morning, I call it a ritual, but it's like it's very informal. I pick up my phone, I open up my note pad or whatever the note app, and I just write down what I remember. And sometimes like I'll remember stuff later on in the day. Sometimes when I'm retelling my dream to somebody, I will remember things that I didn't remember when I wrote them down, so I get to add to it. Something that's been really fun too that I've done a few times is shared a part of my dream with like an AI, whatever you use, and asking them to create a picture for you, because then I can add it to the note, and it just adds this visual. And it makes the dream a little bit more memorable for me. I don't know, when I see those pictures on my photo a roll or whatever in my library on my phone after, I'm like, oh yeah, that dream, right? Like it's just like it's taking it a step further, and it's, I think, one of the great ways of using AI, to sort of generate something for you. And I tried to always like ask it to depict me in a specific way so that there's like a consistent character across all of my dream images that I can then tag, like I said, to the notes that I create for them. So yeah, really fun, and I would highly recommend it because I think, for me anyway, I'm sure that there are other methods of reaching your unconscious and all that, like hypnosis and things like that. But this feels like this is something that I can do on my own. And as I mentioned, I'm kind of like a lone wolf energy. And so, yeah, I tend to prefer to rely on myself for this kind of thing. Even, um, yeah, just I like to explore them by myself. It's fun to discuss them with other people for sure, especially if they're into dream work as well and they share your dreams. Like my sister and I frequently just share our dreams in the morning, right? That can be like the first thing that we do. Um, if there's time, or we share them later on in the day. But and I don't have dreams like every night. Well, I probably do, right? I think we all dream every night, but I mean, I don't, it doesn't always stick with me, or sometimes like I can't quite catch it in the morning. I often describe it as like a slippery fish trying to like get away, and you're just catching its tail, right? And it's like wiggling, and you're like, no, come back here. Like, I need to just like look at you for a second. You can slip away afterwards, but I just need enough of this story to write something down for this. And like I said, too, one of the most interesting about thing about dreams is the reoccurrence of them, like how certain things, and I'll mention one in particular that it was a dream that I had. And when I say reoccurring, in my experience, again, I can only speak for myself here, but in my experience, when I talk about reoccurring dreams, it's not like the same exact dream keeps happening, right? It's not just like, well, first I get in this car and then I meet this person and then I do this and then I do that. Like, it's not like that. It's more that, um, the dream starts off, stuff happens, and then you end up in a really, really similar situation to the point where it's like almost frustrating when you wake up in the morning because you're like, why this again? You know, why? And I think it's one of the things that ends up making dreams so interesting because you start like, if something keeps coming up again and again in your subconscious, there is something there. And I won't go too much into details. If anyone's interested, I can pop the link of the podcast that I had started, back in May, that I might pick up again at some point. I don't know, on dreams, but yeah, this kind of reoccurring, dream that I had was that I kept having dreams where I was in a specific place that was away from home. So, um, again, the place changed. I don't think I knew exactly like where I was necessarily, um, in each dream, but I was just away from home and I was trying to pack up and go home. Like there was travel involved in all of them. Sometimes I was catching a plane, sometimes it was catching a bus, sometimes it was catching a ferry, a train, like whatever it happened to be. I was just, yeah, I was kind of like, I had been somewhere and I was heading home. And then what happened in these dreams over and over again is that first of all, I would be in a foreign environment. So I'd be like in a hotel or someone's house or something like that. And I just had stuff, like so much stuff. So much so that I didn't have room in my luggage. I started just putting stuff in plastic bags and just like being like, how am I going to go through security, especially when it was a flight, right? Like, how am I going to get through with this? They're not going to let me through. And I mean, the metaphor is pretty obvious here, right? It's like baggage or just like stuff, like my things, like my whatever, right? And yeah, and then it was kind of like that was one piece that kept reoccurring, just all this stuff. And then the second piece is that I was often relying on someone else to get me to the airport or to the dock or to the train station, to the bus station. And this person was typically very, very chill about it and like not in a good way, not like, yeah, it's okay, we'll get there. It was kind of like me being like, I have to be there now. And they were like, don't worry about it. And I was like, no, you're supposed to arrive several hours before a flight. And my flight takes off in an hour. Like, I'm already super behind. And they were like, yeah, don't worry about it. And I was like, no, I'm worried about it. Like, I really am. And so these dreams were like filled with anxiety because it was like, one, I have all this stuff and I don't know what to do with it. I can't just like leave it in the hotel as somebody who like I'm quite respectful. And I was like, I don't want like someone else having to clean up my crap, right? And I don't want to toss it out. Like this is good stuff. But yet I have to go catch this flight or this boat or this bus. And so like there was a lot of stress. And then this person who was in charge or like who I'd put in charge, I guess, of taking me to my destination was just being difficult in a sense, right? And I always ended up missing the plane or the ferry or the bus or whatever every time in all of these dreams. So this is like a reoccurring dream that I had so many times. Like I should go back and count, but honestly, I think I once like copy and pasted my notes into a Word document and I had like hundreds of pages of dream records. So that would be a lot of content for me to go through. But yeah, I mean, this is something that I dreamt about at least 20 times, like to give you an idea of the reoccurrence of them. And it wasn't like night after night after night. It was kind of like sometimes it was several months apart. Sometimes I wouldn't have this dream for a long time. But what was really interesting and why I decided to share this particular set of dreams is that there was one day where I had a similar dream, except in this dream, I did get on the plane. And I ended up, I think it was somewhere that looked like India or something like that. And I was in some kind of outdoor market and I had met up with some friends there, friends that like I don't know in my waking life, like they were just dream friends, like made up friends. And I had such a great time there and everything. And, it was such a successful trip. And after I had that dream, so I woke up first of all being like, oh my gosh, I actually got the plane. I actually got on. Like, that's crazy. But not only that, but after I had that dream, I never had that reoccurring dream again. So, you know, as I'm going back here to the importance of recording your dreams, of paying attention to your dreams, of trying to analyze them. But I'm also very conscious that there is something that happens in dreams. There is like, it has its own, how our bodies kind of do a lot of work while we're asleep to kind of like fix us up or whatever. Like it just does a lot of sort of like recovery work in the background that we might not be aware of, but it does like make us better in our waking day. Well, I feel like dreams kind of do the same, but for your psyche. And I should do more research on dreams, honestly, but I also feel like sometimes my experience is research enough. Like, I shouldn't say that, not research enough, but is so informative in a sense that it gives me so much information on dreams without me having to do research about what other people say about it. It's kind of like what I have to say about it counts, and it's very personal, and like it's my experience, and we're so used sometimes to looking outwards for answers and stuff, and I've come to I've come to learn to go within a lot more in my life, in my adult life, because as great as the outside answers can be and how helpful, like they can be so helpful in getting you in the right direction and giving you research information on what's been done out there, I think that there really is an important piece to actually looking inside and having your own understanding of these things. And so, yeah, just to kind of wrap up that whole little spiel, I think that dreams do heal. Like, there is a very healing sort of aspect to them, something that goes on in the background. Like, I feel like I never I can guess at the meaning of dreams, right? That's the best that I can do. I can try to explore them. I can look at each symbol and be like, what does this represent to me in my waking life? But we don't know. Like, I imagine, when you see that, like the pictures of like the iceberg and then the water and then like how big the iceberg is underneath, whereas on top it's like tiny and underneath it's like, I feel like it's kind of like that, right? You might get that little bit of understanding, or you might be able to relate that understanding to your consciousness, which is this tiny little floaty thing at the top, but your subconscious is like this huge, vast ocean and depth that you don't have access to, like not directly. I mean, some people might. I don't. I think like most normal people don't have direct access to their subconscious. That's in the name, right? It's subconscious. You are not conscious of it. And so, yeah, I think, in dreams, even if you do try to analyze them and stuff, just being aware of what they do for you, right? Because, like, that can't be a coincidence, like, in my head, that I had this reoccurring dream for years. And then I have one time where it's kind of like the dream is released. The tension is released, like it comes to a conclusion. There is an ending almost. And it's not like an ending like a TV show that you watch or a video game that you play. It's never that clean in dreams. If you do dream work, you'll quickly realize that there's typically no ending to things. Even stories, like what you put together in your head as you try to remember dreams, like you are forming a narrative, but actually in dreams, there's not really a narrative. Like there's events that happen, but they're not necessarily trying to create a story for you. It's just like it's kind of like life, right? Like you can write your life into a story. You can write a bibliography or biography, sorry, about your life and kind of state events that happen, but you cannot capture every thought, every word, every conversation, every action, every, text that you send. Like there's just so much information and you can never contain all of that in one book. So yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's kind of the same thing. You can write a little spiel about your dream, but you will never understand the work that's going on underneath. And that is so valuable. But as I said, by tracking them, it's almost like you are at least witnessing that happening within you, even if you can't understand it, even if you will never understand it, you are witnessing something for real. Like, like this is real. Like I have notes, I have notes to not prove it, but prove it to myself that this is something that happened in my lifetime. And this is just one example. Like I have a current reoccurring dream that has not had its conclusion yet. I keep waiting for it, but I don't know how long it'll take. But anyway, so I guess that was kind of like my rant for the day, and I will probably talk about dreams a lot. It is something that's deeply close to my heart, and strangely, I think it's something that I would want to include in my business. Kind of like you're like dream interpretation buddy. Like we talk about it together, right? Because I know that so many people have like this aversion to dreams because like literally listening to other people's dreams is so boring. I don't get it and stuff. But like, actually, no, I love it. So I think that it would be like so cool to have that as like one of my services when I launch my second business or whatever you want to call it, my project. And yeah, I think people would benefit greatly from that. And again, I'm not a therapist or anything like that. This is totally a personal interest. So I know that there are um, like especially those who um, kind of became Jungian analysts and stuff like that. Carl Jung, the psychologist, he was really interested in dreams. So I know that there are people out there that do this stuff, like clinically or whatever, like therapy wise. For me, it'd be more like conversational and just like, let's talk about it. And because I think the only person that can really answer like the questions about symbolism and the archetypes of your dreams is yourself, right? Like you can get a little bit of guidance or whatnot, but you are the one that can make those connections, right? You can be like, oh, well, my mother was in that dream, but actually, she didn't feel like my mother. She felt like my aunt, or like, oh, she felt like my grade two teacher, right? Like, or she felt like my pet fish from grade two. Dreams are just weird like that. They cast people in your lives as into roles, but that's not always necessarily like that person. And I think, again, this is just something that comes with practice. So I don't know. I don't know if this would be interesting to anybody. It's just something that I'm terribly interested in and that I would want to see as being part of my business, my future endeavors and whatnot. But I'm not there yet. Right now, I'm just trying to record these videos. So I think I'll end this one for today. That'll be my little rant of the day. So that is video to number 2. So 98 more to go, but I'm really proud of myself for having 2 down already. And again, I invite you to share anything you'd want to share. If I said anything that, rang any bells for you or made you feel something or you have questions, like please don't hesitate to reach out or write up in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to respond to your comments. I'd love to have a conversation. So, yeah, please don't hesitate to reach out. That is my soft little request at the end of this. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Bye.